Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Sarah Bostic, and I'm the Sustainable Agriculture Extension Agent with the University of Florida in Sarasota County. And I am joined today by two of my fantastic coworkers, Carol Wyatt Evans, who's the Chemicals and the Environment Agent in the Sarasota County office, and Mindy Hannock, who is the School and Community Garden Coordinator for Sarasota County Extension. And Mindy is actually the wonderful human being who has been moderating the chat box through our entire 25-part series, and she does a fantastic job of that. So as we go today, any questions that you have, whether or not they are related to the topic of the day, as long as they're related to edible gardening, type them right into that chat box and Mindy will get them organized and asked when we switch over to the question part of today's session. So this is session number 22 out of a 25-part series that we're doing. We're getting close to the end. And today's topic is gardening. And we actually started this series about 6 months ago because there was such an uptick in the number of people who were interested in gardening for the first time or getting back into gardening. And we're just figuring out that they were having a hard time being successful gardening in Florida and in other parts of the country. So we created this series basically based on the biggest questions and the biggest things that people struggle with who are getting into gardening. Today's topic, tools for gardening, is one of those big questions that we hear from folks. So I'm going to dive right in. I'm going to spend about 12 or so minutes talking about some of the most important tools or the most handy tools for gardeners, and then we will use the rest of the hour for your questions. So in my mind, in my experience, this seems a little cliched, but it's so true. The most essential tool for being successful gardening anywhere is your hands and a very observant mind. I definitely find that so many of the mysteries of gardening are solved when you get in there with your hands and touch things and interact with things and start to connect dots, really start to notice with your mind what's happening. So really actually sometimes just sitting in your garden and watching the world go by is an incredibly helpful tool. But those are clearly more esoteric sorts of tools. So some of the most very concrete and tangible tools are on this list right here. And this is certainly not an all-encompassing list, but these are just some of the things that I personally find most helpful. And I'm gonna go through this list in little chunks. So you don't need to write things down. I'm gonna go through it in little chunks the way my brain works around gardening. So the first part of that list are things that I kind of put into the category that I think of as tools for moving things around, right? Gardeners move a lot of things around. There's always something to move from point A to point B, some compost, some mulch, maybe some plant material that you've just purchased, a pile of weeds that you just weeded out of the garden, maybe some rocks for a pathway. There's always things to move around. So depending on the size of the garden and what sorts of things I'm moving around, 3 of my favorite tools for moving things around are just like a simple 5-gallon bucket with a comfortable handle. Not all 5-gallon buckets have the same kind of handle. Some are more comfortable than others. So if you go to the store looking for a 5-gallon bucket, try a few different kinds of handles out. You'll see a really big difference. It's also 5-gallon buckets are really handy too, because when they're not full, you can just flip them over and sit on them. Have yourself a little mobile seat. A good wheelbarrow or a garden cart is incredibly helpful for moving things around. And then also a tarp. Tarps are so helpful for moving things like piles of weeds, mulch, compost, things like that around. And then you can just fold it all up and put it in a shed when you're done with it. And then tools for cutting. It's really important to have a really comfortable, sharp pair of some sort of cutting implement in your garden. It's really hard to be as gentle with plants as you need to be if you try to do everything just with your hands. Sometimes cutting is really the best way to do certain things like pruning or just cleaning plants up or harvesting. So I actually really like to have a few different shapes around when I'm gardening. You certainly don't have to, but these are the 3 shapes that I find really handy. These are actually my own pruners. This is all gunked up with sap. I used to have a wreath making business, so it's all gunked up with sap. This this is a good picture of how not to treat your nice cutting tools. But this is a cutting tool that's really good for some of the thicker stalks. Like I can get through a broccoli trunk with this pair of snips. And then something that has a really tiny point is really handy, and really good springs so they bounce back. And then these are actually just like, really, really strong kitchen shears that I find really helpful for harvesting things like herbs. And then measuring tools. You don't have to get fancy at all with things to measure things, but it is really helpful to have a handful of things to create measurement with in a garden. I really like having, just like a set of old measuring spoons, or even just a tablespoon from my kitchen when I'm doing things like measuring fertilizer. In general, on a garden scale, a measuring spoon is a really good size measuring utensil for fertilizer. If you're growing on a much larger scale, then a measuring spoon probably won't cut it, but it's a really good tool to have on a garden scale. I also really like having a measuring tape or a yardstick around. It's really helpful for things like spacing your plants out, or building raised beds, or just kind of getting a general idea of how much space you're working with. And then I love having a ball of twine around. It doesn't have to be fancy twine. It doesn't have to be made of a natural material. It can be, something synthetic or natural, like you can see in this picture. But it's so handy. And one of the things that I love using twine for is that I actually will go through with maybe make like if my garden bed, for example, is 10 feet long, I will tie one end of my twine onto a stake or a stick, and then tie the other end onto a stake or a stick. So I have a 10-foot stretch between the two sticks. And then I make little knots or use like a Sharpie to make black marks at 1 foot increments or 6-inch increments. That's a really easy thing that you can just move around your garden. It's basically like a moving measuring stick, and it helps you make good straight lines with good spacing. To me, a $3 spool of twine is one of the most useful tools you can possibly have in your garden. You can just reuse it over and over again. And so the next kind of clump, as my brain thinks of it, are things that have something to do with the planting process. And you can definitely put twine in this category also, because I use twine for making good straight lines and with spacing and things like that. But these are two things that are really concretely for planting for me. So one actually that is kind of a funny one to put in this category, but this is how my brain works, is a really good, it doesn't have to be fancy, but just like a watertight container for seed storage. A lot of seeds, garden seeds, will last for quite a few years if you store them correctly. So if you put them in a watertight container, something like a Tupperware container, and then you can put them in your freezer or in just a cool, dark place, a lot of varieties of seeds will stay good for a few years. So that's just a great way to enhance the longevity of the seeds that you've invested in. And then something to help you with your planting. So like a trowel, or the tool that you see at the bottom of your screen is one of my personal tools that I had recently used for digging and still had the dirt right on it. And it is called a hori hori. It's actually a traditional Japanese planting tool, but to me it is incredibly useful. It's narrower than a trowel, and it has a serrated edge, which is quite sharp, so you have to be careful with it. But that serrated edge on one side is really helpful, especially if you're in really dense soil, like clay soil. It helps to kind of cut down into the soil. And also if you're trying to cut through roots and things like that, that serrated edge is so helpful. And then a lot of hori-horis also come with inch spacing, or sometimes they'll have centimeter spacing right there etched into the metal of the blade. And that's so helpful because with so many plants and seeds, they need to be planted at a really specific depth. And it can be really cumbersome to always keep track of a ruler or just try to guess how deep you're planting something. So with your hori-hori, it's digging and measuring at the same time. There's also some trowels that do a similar sort of thing, but those are a couple of neat tools to take a look at. And watering tools, right? So watering is a really important thing in most people's gardens. There are definitely parts of the country that have a growing season that corresponds with their wet season, so they don't actually need to water, but most gardeners do need to water, at least on a weekly basis and sometimes more. And watering can be a really frustrating process if you don't have the right tools. I know that I have wrestled with tangled, horrible old hoses and watering cans that get clogged up with leaves and things that leak and drip and just kind of generally drive me crazy. So if you are in that category of gets easily frustrated by tangled hoses, it is well worth it to put some money into a watering system that's actually going to work better for you and not be a source of frustration. So there's so many different kinds of hoses on the market, including hoses that are specifically made for food contact. So a lot of people, rather than just buy a regular garden hose from something like a garden center, actually seek out a food grade hose that's made of materials that are intended to interact with something that you eat. Those are almost always white in color. And then watering cans are definitely not all made the same. I find it incredibly helpful to get a watering can where you can actually remove the nozzle because there's so many things that do get clogged up in a watering can. And for Florida gardeners, it is definitely worth noting that black widow spiders love getting in things like empty watering cans and getting up into those nozzles. That's a really nice place for them to hang out. So you don't want to get your watering can all mucked up with things like black widow spiders. So having a nozzle that you can actually remove and knock out the debris is so helpful. And then having, there's some watering cans that will just dump water out, and then others that sprinkle water at such a slow rate that you're going to end up either underwatering your plants or spending a whole hour watering a small garden bed. So pay attention to like how perforated the hole of your watering can is. It makes a really big difference. And then if you're really doing a lot of watering, as we often are in the growing season in Florida, it's probably worth it to invest in a decent adjustable hose nozzle as well. Something that can spray at different strengths is really handy. And then in one of the previous classes we did all about watering, we actually went into automatic watering systems. So for big gardens, automatic watering systems can be really handy. And we'll send you the link to that class on watering in our follow-up email. And then there's just a whole bunch of tools that are really about comfort, right? You don't need them, but they certainly can make the process of gardening a whole lot more comfortable. Things like gardening gloves, knee pads, kneeling mats, benches, kneelers, things like that. If you don't normally spend a lot of time bending over on your hands and knees, using something like knee pads or a kneeler is incredibly helpful. And then same with gardening gloves. And it's really worth noting too that gardening gloves come in a lot of different sizes. I have small hands. I am a small female with small hands. And so those one size fits all gardening gloves don't fit me. I am not included in that one size fits all sizing. So I always, whenever I'm using something like gloves, I specifically seek out gloves that either are offered in multiple sizes, and I purchase the smallest ones, or gloves that are specifically made for smaller women's hands. It goes a really long way in actually having a comfortable gardening experience where you have enough dexterity to actually do what you're trying to do. And then I think this list, things that I call memory tools, I think this is actually kind of top of the list of things that are most important in terms of tools for successful gardening, because so much about successful gardening is about learning from what did and didn't work and learning from the small things that change from year to year and trying to start to see the overall picture of how your garden works. And when you do this, you get this reaction. And when you don't do this, you get this response, those sorts of things. So it's really hard to keep all those things just in your head from year to year. So memory tools to me are such an important tool. So when I'm using small garden spaces, I love doing things like labeling the plants, so maybe it's just like a bunch of little pop stick labels or popsicle sticks. Those are make really good labels. You can get them from garden centers. And then rather than using a pen to write with, actually using just a regular old graphite pencil works best. That graphite holds up really well outside on labels, much better than pens or even permanent markers do. And so some sort of good dense pencil. I like to use the kinds of pencils that construction workers use or contractors use, those really thick ones you can get for cheap at the gardening stores. And then I love making a map, just kind of, just a simple sketch of what I planted where each year. So you can just reference it, every year. You can see where you planted this last year and rotate around what you're planting where. Same notebook. There's also all sorts of garden journals. You can download free templates of garden journals that help you, that have all the templates in place where they ask you all the right questions. And then you just plug in the information, things like, today I fertilized and today I watered and today I picked these kinds of insects off. It's a really great way to start to get your head wrapped around the sorts of things that are really a really good idea to start paying attention to in your garden by downloading one of those garden journal templates. And I'll send you some links in a follow-up email that has some of that information. And then your cell phone camera or some other sort of camera, having an actual visual photograph or an image that you can pull up on your phone of what your space looked like last year, especially if you have a time date stamp on your pictures, is wonderful. So you can actually go back and see, oh yeah, I planted this on October 17th last year, and I was harvesting it by December 12th. You have that record in pictures, and that can be a really great way to remember what you did and what didn't work from year to year. And then last but not least, things that I like to think of as learning and detecting tools. So I would highly recommend having at least one really good gardening book or guide that's specific to Florida if you live in Florida. If you don't live in Florida, that won't be as helpful. Find a gardening book or guide that is specific to where you live. But having a book or a guide you can reference is incredibly helpful because it takes a really long time before you get to the point where you just hold all the information in your head about what to plant when and what pests are looking like and things like that. And then for having a really good pest ID app or a website that you can easily reference. There's some really good ones out there that Carol can fill you in on. This is one of those guides. I just wanted to give you a visual. The University of Florida has a really handy, totally free 11-page download that is literally called the Florida Vegetable Gardening Guide. It's just a great one. If you are new to gardening, or even if you're not and you live in Florida, this is a great one just to have printed out and at your fingertips. That's what we've got for you today. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen right now. And actually, before I do that, though, just want to remind folks that we have only 3 more classes left in this series. Next week, we're going to have a really neat class all about insects and the colors that they're attracted to, which is an amazing thing just to learn in general in life, but it's also a really, really handy touch point when you're gardening. And then we're going to skip a week because of some previous commitments and then go back for the last 2 in May. If you missed any of the first 20 classes in our series, that right there is the whole list of classes that we have taught thus far. And they are all available now on our website. We have a whole edible gardening web page within our office's website, and we will also share that with you in a follow-up email.